Lawyers for Rayshard Brooks said his family is devastated, but they will be pursuing the case through the civil courts.
Broken, confused, but not angry. No person out there should be angry. This isn't a time for unrest or division. This isn't a time to accuse every officer out there of being a bad cop, because that's just not true. There are phenomenal police officers out there in APD and across this country, people we depend on every day for our lives. But we have a responsibility to speak up when something wrong has occurred. So we're destroyed by the announcement today, and we'll continue our fight in civil court, because that seems to be the only place that we can get justice, possibly, depending on the city of Atlanta and its leadership. But they did not. They did not. They chose not to when they were justified. But they decided to use lethal force as a man was running away 19 feet away.
Is losing a fight a reason enough for Rayshard Brooks to have lost his life? That's the question. You lost the fight. There are 100 other tools at your disposal that you can use as a police officer to catch a suspect that's fleeing.
For more on both of these cases, we can cross live to Washington, D.C. and join Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham. Thanks for joining us again, Eric. Let's start with Breonna Taylor. Could you tell us more about this former officer who has now finally pleaded guilty in her own part of the botched raid, which unfortunately led to Breonna Taylor's fatal shooting?
Well, this is certainly some good news for the many activists in Louisville, Kentucky that have been protesting, that have been demonstrating, and that have been calling for justice for Breonna Taylor. We remember after that fateful shooting, and then, of course, the investigation by the Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, who is now running for governor in the state of Kentucky. And what we saw in that case was there was only one charge, a very minor charge, in fact, on a police officer who had been tried, in fact, was acquitted. And now what we see is that the Justice Department has stepped into this case, making arguments that Breonna Taylor's civil rights had been violated. In fact, we heard from the Attorney General, who said that Breonna Taylor should be alive today. And already just weeks after the announcement of this investigation by the Justice Department, we see now one police officer has actually pled guilty. And what she admitted to was not only conspiracy, but she admitted that they knew that Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend did not live in the same home with Breonna Taylor. In fact, she went on to say that she fabricated documents, and also she made up additional information after the fact. So clearly, this is only the beginning of where this investigation will go. And also what it does is it certainly shakes up this entire narrative that somehow the police actually got it right with this no-knock warrant against Breonna Taylor. And also, of course, this does play into what could potentially play out in Kentucky, both with the elections this year and the midterm elections, but more importantly, of course, Daniel Cameron, who is running for governor for the state of Kentucky.
Well, Eric, what has been the reaction in the U.S. to this officer pleading guilty?
Again, this is seen as a moment of euphoria. This was seen as, of course, we remember all of this taking place in the wake of the massive Black Lives Matter protests across the country, and the fact that there was no justice for Breonna Taylor. And the fact that Breonna Taylor was someone who worked as an EMT professional, so someone, who would work very closely with police officers. And the fact that this was carried out so egregiously, the fact that they were looking for this individual who many knew was common knowledge, did not live in this home, was not there, and then just how haphazardly this played out. Even to the layman's eye, this was seen as very problematic. And also the fact that you had someone in Daniel Cameron, an African-American, Republican no less, who actually carried out this investigation. And of course, there were a lot of questions about his investigation and how he decided to take on this case. And then the fact that he only came down with these very minor charges. And then there was an acquittal with that. And so you see the Justice Department that I said has stepped in, already getting results. Many believe that this was always seen as a sham, and now many believe that Breonna Taylor is finally getting her justice that many believe has been denied for so long.
Now, from Breonna Taylor to what's happening with, Rayshard Brooks, there have been no charges in the police killing of him. And can you just remind us about what happened in that incident?
Yeah, this was a shooting that took place in the city of Atlanta in the state of Georgia. And for our viewers, Georgia is like the epicenter of U.S. politics right now, where you have a massive political race going on. So clearly, this outcome today will have an impact on that race. But also, we remember Ahmaud Arbery, who was killed also in the state of Georgia. So Georgia's been a groundswell of racial and political tension. And this killing of Rayshard Brooks, this actually took place 3 weeks after the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And so so this was basically a firestorm that was taking place. And again, a place where we saw massive protests and demonstrations taking place. Rayshard Brooks was an individual who appeared to be asleep in his vehicle, was awakened by police, and police attempted to arrest him. He had a physical confrontation with the police, and he fled. And as he was fleeing police, he was shot in the back. And of course, all of this was on video, and the American people saw this. And so the police officers were put on administrative leave. And now what we see after nearly 2 years of investigation, we're now learning that the police will not be charged in this case. Again, very deflating for the supporters, both of Rayshard Brooks as well as police reform. But again, this will leave a bad taste in the mouths of many. And it could have an impact on the midterm elections, of course, that are taking place in just under 80 days.
Very bad taste indeed. Let's just hope that everyone stays calm. Thank you so much for your analysis, as always.